So we'll start off by looking at the surface anatomy of the small intestine and where exactly it's positioned within the abdomen. And then we're going to look at the gross anatomy of it. So look at the three parts, duodenum, jejunum and ileum, and look at the location of these areas and the relations they have to other organs within the abdomen. We'll look at the wall structure, and then, like with the stomach, we'll look at its neurovascular supply. So the small intestine is really important. It's the main site for chemical digestion and then absorption. So it receives bile from the liver, and this helps to break down, emulsify the fats. And it also receives digestive enzymes from the pancreas. So it's intimately associated, as we'll see, with these organs. The chyme can then now be absorbed through the walls of the epithelium of the small intestine and then pass into the bloodstream. So the small intestine finishes off this digestion and then allows absorption to occur. So we'll start how we usually start with these lectures, and we'll look briefly at the surface anatomy, the position of them as it's been put onto the torso. So here we can see, just in this one, we just have the initial part of the small intestine, the duodenum, this C-shaped structure. And this would be continuous with the J-shaped stomach that we saw in the previous lecture. So we've got the stomach and we've got the esophagus, which is coming down in this direction. And we can see this C-shaped duodenum. That's the first part of the small intestine. And we can't actually see that part of the small intestine that clearly on this diagram. Again, we can see the esophagus nicely passing down through the thorax, entering the abdomen through the diaphragm, and then being continuous with the dilated sac of the stomach. The stomach is then continuous with the small intestine. Initially, the duodenum, which is lying posterior to what we know as the transverse colon, and also part of the liver. The duodenum is what's known as retroperitoneal. We'll come back to this term later on, but it means it lies behind the peritoneum, which, as we'll see, is a membranous sac that is within the abdominal cavity. The duodenum is then continuous with the small intestine, and here we can see the coils of jejunum and the coils of ileum that form the small intestine, and these are incredibly long, this tube, this part of the gastrointestinal tract. And it passes really from this upper left quadrant down in this direction towards the lower right quadrant, where it's then continuous with the large intestine. And it does this by these coils of jejunum and ileum, as we'll see. So some key facts with regard to the small intestine. About 90% of the ingested nutrients are absorbed by the small intestine, so it carries out the majority of the absorption. It's fairly long, 6 to 7 meters in length. And as it passes from the stomach to the large intestine, it decreases in diameter from around about 4 centimeters in the stomach to about 2 centimeters at the junction with the large intestine. It's a big, long, sprawling part of the GI tract, and it's found within 6 of those 9 abdominal regions. It's found in 6 of the 9. It's not found in the hypochondria, the right and left hypochondriac regions, and also the epigastrium. So it's found in the lower 6. It's divided, as I've mentioned before, into 3 subdivisions, and from proximal to distal. So from the stomach to the large intestine, we have the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. The duodenum is important as it receives digestive secretions from both the liver, bile, and the pancreas, pancreatic juice, like amylase, to aid digestion, to help break down the ingested food so it can be absorbed.